Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com, and we're back with this week's new comic book reviews. And once again, I thought it was a small week, but no, lots of books. And there's a couple catch-ups. We'll get to that when we get there. But lots going on this week. So let's get right to it. First up, we have Aquaman 80th Anniversary 100-page Super Spectacular. So this has multiple writers and artists. So the first, so we have Jeff Parker writing, Evan Doc Shaner is the artist. Then we have Jeff Johns writing with Paul Peltier penciling with Norm Rapmund inking. Then we have Michael Morse writing and Popman doing the artwork. Then we have Stephanie Phillips writing and Kendra Pastia as the artist. Then we have Sean Allredge writing with Tom Denerick as the artist. Marguerite Bennett as the writer and Trung Le Nguyen as the artist. Kevin Scott is the writer. And then we have Scott Eden penciling with Norm Rapmund inking. Then we have Dan Waters writing with Miguel Mendoza penciling with Daniel Herrenquiz inking. Then we have Dan Jurgens writing with Steve Epting doing the artwork. Then we have Chuck Brown writing with Valentine D. Lorando as the artist. And then finally, the last story is written by Brandon Thomas with artwork by Diego Elothrugui. So this is another one of those 100-page giant that has multiple stories in it. So, it's always kind of a crapshoot what you're going to get. I don't think there were any that I didn't, I thought were bad. There were a couple of them that just didn't overwhelm me. Some of them were a little, like for short stories, a little bit convoluted, so that didn't help. I will say, point out the ones I really liked. I really liked the Jeff Parker, Doc Evans one. That one was really, really good. I really enjoyed that one a lot. One of the surprise ones was kind of a Black Man Aqualad story that was that Jeff Johns and Paul Peltier did. That was a big bit of a surprise. The other one, let's see. We'll go through. There's a lot of stories in this one. I really did like the. Which one is this? The family one. The family one was really good. The Sean Aldridge and Tom Denerick's artwork was really, really good. I enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. One of the really nice, surprising ones was the Marguerite Bennett and the Trung Le Nguyen one. That was really, really good. I really enjoyed that. It kind of reminded me of that young adult DC book, the Mirror one, that was really good. Overall, I think they were good. Let's see. There was one. There was a Black Man of the. So here's the thing. There's two stories. The last two stories set up. There's a Black Manta miniseries coming up. So there's kind of a prelude in here to that. And then there's the new Aquaman miniseries that's coming out. And it's written by the same guy who did the Future State Aquaman, which I really enjoyed a lot. That was Brandon Thomas. And the artwork on that one by Diego Elothrugui is really, really nice. I really, really enjoyed this. Once again, these are always kind of tough because, they're $10. So I think this one's almost worth it. I mean, there were some, like I said, there wasn't any horrible stories. There were a couple, and, I don't want to, point them out, but there were a couple that were just like, they didn't feel, they were too dense for a short story, and the ones that worked just, were paced it for a short story. I think, the short stories can be really great, but they can also be tough. So, if it's not kind of written as a short story, if they're trying to pack too much story in, then sometimes there were a couple like that. I don't think they failed. They were just like, they were kind of like, okay, this is a lot for a short story. So overall, I think it's good. I don't think it's 100%, but I would say I would give it, I think 70% of the stories are good. So, and then there's a couple of them that really, really stand out. So I think it's worth checking out. There are multiple covers. I chose the Michael Cho one. I really like his stuff. He has that, he's the heir apparent to Darwin Cook, and he has that, he gets that like retro style, and I really really love that. Although I did like the Jose Garcia Lopez one too, that was for the '70s, so that one was really nice too. But overall, I think if you're a fan of Aquaman, it's worth checking out. But I'd say if you're a bit on a budget, you might I would say there wasn't anything that was really really like standoutish, if you're on a budget. So next up we have Demon Days Cursed Web #1 by Peach Momoko. Now this is these are continuing. These are like they come out every other month, I believe. And they do continue the story, but they do kind of also stand on their own. It's about this journey of this girl, and each issue she's encountering like different X-Men characters. In this one, it's actually Mystique. And she also runs across, it's not really said, but it's kind of, I guess you could kind of almost say like a Spider-Man or more like a Silk or Spider-Woman type character. So that's that, she's on her journey. And so along the way, she's running into these characters. So this issue was actually a bit, kind of quick and everything. There was it was a little more looser than her other ones, but I still enjoyed it. Of course, obviously one of the big reasons you're buying is for her artwork, and her artwork is actually really gorgeous. But there was kind of the story just kind of had kind of a simplicity, and also there were times where in a way the artwork kind of had a children's book quality where it was kind of simple, but it worked well. Once again, I enjoy these. I think they're really great. I mean, it does help a bit if you know the story. There is a recap in the front that will help you if you haven't, but they kind of do stand alone. So I think I enjoy them, and I've had a real struggle lately with Marvel books that have been good. So I think this one's worth checking out. Next up, we have Telepaths #1 by J. Michael Straczynski with artwork by Steve Epting. Now, this is interesting because this is, it's kind of like, it's not so much the end of the world, but it's almost like, like say War of the Worlds where something happens. It's not an alien invasion, but there's basically this giant solar flare. Knocks everybody out in the world, and then when people wake up, well, of course, planes crash and trains and all that kind of stuff in that respect. But some people gain this telepathic ability. I will give Straczynski, he does a good job of setting up the characters, because really the thing, the solar flare part doesn't really happen till like really the end of the book. So he takes the time to set up the characters, which is actually a good thing. Now, obviously, this first issue is, really pure exposition. So there's a lot going on here as far as setting everything up. But in that respect, that's actually a good thing, because I think you get to know the characters. And so when things start happening towards the end of the issue, you're like, okay, well, I know this character enough, so that works. On the really plus side, I mean, you have Steve Epting's art, and he really, I mean, he was, he did the, Captain America, with introduced the Winter Soldier. He's been doing a lot of work. He does a lot of, graphic novels and stuff, now, but this is like his first regular comic work in quite a while. And he's really good because, once again, most of the story is people standing around talking. So when you have a really just strong artist like Epting, it really, he really is able to convey all those subtle emotions, like when, people are talking and stuff. So it actually works. He's really a plus to this book. I found it quite interesting. I mean, the concept is, I will not say, you've read this story like a million times. I think the key to this book is going to be the second issue, where Straczynski takes it from here. Once again, it's a basic concept. The question is, where are you going to go with this? So next up, we have, now this is the one, so I messed up on ordering. It wasn't my comic shop, so I don't blame Ryan or anything like that. But I missed the first issue. So the first issue came in this week, and the second issue came out this week. So we're going to review 2 issues in one. So it's going to be Groo meets Tarzan #1. And then we have Groo meets Tarzan #2. So we're going to kind of we're going to 2 for 1 on this one. So Obviously, who isn't a Groo fan? We all love it. First of all, it's written by Sergio Aragonis and Mark Evanier, with artwork by Sergio Aragonis and Tom Yates. Tom Yates does the Tarzan parts. So what this is, it sets up, first of all, it's Mark and Sergio, Stan Sakai and Stan Sakai who letters it, and Tom Luth who does the coloring. They're at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, and Sergio's like, oh, I love Tarzan, I love Edgar Rice Burroughs, and I've got us some passes to the Chula Vista Zoo, which is apparently, I don't think it's real, but it's this like really crappy zoo. So Sergio gets trapped there overnight, and so what it is like Sergio falls asleep and he imagines the Groo story, and kind of at the parallel, kind of at the same time, there's a parallel story of Tarzan. So the Tarzan is done very straightforward. It's very much like Tarzan. It's a venture story. It's about natives that are getting captured and turned into slaves. So he's going to try to rescue them. So there's that part of the story. And then the Groo story is your typical Groo story where he's going to the village and destroying stuff, eating everything in sight. It's just typical. It's him and Raffetto, his dog. And it's just, like Groo stuff. So you kind of got three things going. You've got the quote unquote reality story with, Sergio, Mark, Stan, and Tom, which is mostly Sergio and Mark, but then you have the Groo story, and then you have the Tarzan story. So the first issue kind of, keeps them all separate, and then so does the second issue. So at the end of the second issue is when Groo and Tarzan actually meet, and it's not till the end of the issue. So what it is like I said, Sergio draws all the Groo parts and stuff like that, and then Tom Yates draws the Tarzan parts. Then when they get to meet, so that's where the collaboration goes, where Tom Yates is drawing the Tarzan parts, and then Sergio kind of in the same panel draws in the Groo parts. It's really, they did they did previous one with Edgar Rice Burroughs' Conan, so they had done that when Dark Horse had the rights to Conan. So now, first of all, it's great because you have Groo, which is awesome. You have Tarzan, that is awesome. And then you just throw them together in this fun story and somewhat serious story. And, I think it's going to be interesting with the third issue, because then, you have Tarzan and Groo meeting. And if it's anything like, Groo meets Tarzan, or Groo meets Conan, then, it's really going to, it's going to go off the hook, when they actually meet. So I really, really recommend this. It's going to be 4 issues. I really love these first 2 issues. Mark and Sergio, really, the story's really good. And then, Sergio's just a brilliant artist. There's a lot of, especially the Comic-Con stuff is really, really fun. And then Tom Yates is just, his art is absolutely gorgeous, and he draws a great Tarzan. This is really classic looking Tarzan. This is really good stuff. I really highly recommend this book, and you really need to pick it up. Next up, we have Almost American #1, written by Ron Mars and with artwork by Marco Castiello. Now, this is apparently based on a true story of 2 Russian spies that turn themselves in to basically get away. They turn themselves into the Americans because they don't want to run anymore, and they don't want to be spies. So that's the thing. So that's the basic premise of the story. The problem I kind of had with this first issue is it's not so much this exposition. I will give Mars, he does a really good job of setting it up. The problem is there's such a small part of the story that we actually get in this first issue. It's almost like it's almost like the first and second issue really would have been better as like a bigger first issue. I think the problem is that you're just kind of left with such a small morsel of the setup of the story that you're not really entirely satisfied, because by the time you get to the end of the issue, you're like, oh, well, we just started. So that it's not a knock on the writing or anything like that. It's just that there's just not enough pages here to really make a definitive decision on what this book is going to, where this story is going to go. like I said, it's a shame because I did like it. It's just like I got to the end, I'm like, is that it? It was over so soon. Because there was a lot going on, but once again, you're just getting that small bite. I will really say I really love Castellio's artwork. It's really, really nice here. It really does a good job. Once again, people are standing around talking, and if he really captures the emotions and stuff like that. The little subtle when they're talking to the like FBI agents and stuff like that. I really like it. It's just like I said, just be forewarned that this first issue really just is very small. You're just getting a small bite. So that's my only knock against it. I thought it was really good, but that is something to consider. Next up, we have Batman Fear State Alpha #1, written by James Tynion IV, with artwork by Riccardo Federici. Now, this is the big setup for the big Fear State crossover that every Bat book in the universe is going to be involved with. So this is like, how the Scarecrow sets everything up. It's a setup. It sets everything up, and it's fine, but it kind of goes back, and this is maybe just me personally. I'm kind of, first of all, I mean, Batman, there's so many books. They're saturating the market. And then on top of that, we just got really done with the Joker War. Do we need, like this other big story crossover? And, I just, you just kind of want to sit down and read like a regular book. And then you have the problem with these crossovers where you're reading, like I read Nightwing. I love Nightwing. It's going to be in that book. And so it's going to kind of somewhat stop the storyline that, they're doing. And then there's this, Fear State stuff, which, it's not to say that this stuff is bad, but it's, it's just a lot. You're talking about, like probably 30 books total to quote unquote get the whole story. It's just for me too much. It's just for me. Now, that being said, this was fine. It sets up, it's a big setup to, this big, event thing, with the Scarecrow and Gotham City and everything. And, it's fine for what it is. It does what it does. Tynion, writes it, sets it up and everything. I really did like Federici's artwork. It's really a good looking book in that respect. I did like it, but ultimately I'm just crossovered out. I mean, I'll be honest, maybe I'll try, one of the Batman books, but at this point, I just want to kind of read one comic at a time. In that I don't want to, I'm just not a big crossover person. And, for me, I'm probably going to pull the chute. So, but if it's something, I thought it was pretty decent. I think if you're willing to go in for this whole thing, I think it's a decent start. In that respect. Next up, we have Dark Ages #1, written by Tom Taylor with artwork by Iban Coelho. Now, this is once again, so this is interesting because now this is, first of all, this is Tom Taylor's first work for Marvel, I believe. He's been writing at DC. He's done Suicide Squad. He's writing Nightwing. He wrote Hellblazer. That graphic novel, the 3-issue Prestige Black Label series that was really wonderful. So this is there was a lot writing. I really like Taylor's writing. Now the question is, how does he translate when he goes to Marvel? Now, here's the thing. It's still, it's very straightforward. It didn't really entirely feel like Tom Taylor. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it didn't kind of have like a really personal stamp. It really felt like, a kind of typical, Marvel epic story with, bunches of heroes and everything. Now, that being said, it's fine for what it is. So what it is there was this machine that was created to eat black holes, so they wouldn't swallow planets and stuff like that. Well, the problem is he ate too many black holes and got out of control. So they couldn't kill him, so they kind of put him in prison. They decided to put him inside Earth. Once again, a great theory. Let's put the guy in Earth. So Earth is going to be destroyed unless all the heroes could get together and either or not so much either try to destroy him or send him away. That's the basic premise. So that's what this story is. It's kind of an event comic for Marvel. It felt very, like a crossover event type story. Now, this is not going to cross over into a bunch of books. It's just like a mini series. But it was kind of like, it's nice for what it is, but it really didn't have a lot of depth to it. I mean, I will say he did a nice job of capturing all the characters and everything. And then what it is at the end of they fail. Doctor Strange sends, the Invisible Woman off to like another dimension or something. And then we find out that there's kind of this alternate Dark Ages Marvel verse that she's been sent to. So that's the setup. Once again, the first issue is nice and everything. It is what it is, but it didn't go beyond just being like, oh, that's nice. I will say Coelho's artwork is actually really, really nice and does a really nice job of capturing all the Marvel characters. It looks really good and everything. It's just fine. It's a standard crossover event book, and it's nice for what it is, but it didn't really necessarily blow my socks off while I was reading it. I'll check out the second issue and see kind of where he goes now that this, because this first issue was exposition setup. So we'll see where it goes. But, I'll see if Tom Taylor can pull it out and do something kind of different with this. Next up, we have Superman Batman Annual 2021, number 1. So the story is by Jean Luen Yang. So the Batman's half of the book is drawn by with pencils by Paul Peltier and inks by Mick Gray, and then the Superman side is drawn by Francisco Francavilla. So what this is kind of a follow up to the multiple film worlds storyline that just ended in the regular Batman Superman. But this doesn't really have a villain. It's just that you have like the old Batman going to like, the Superman universe where instead of Metropolis, it's Gotham, they flipped and, and then Superman goes to Metropolis, a la it's crappy like Gotham. So that's kind of the story. So, and once again, what's really interesting is that each story you read them separately, and as it gets to the middle of the book, the storylines connect together. So even though they're separate stories, that there's threads that do connect them. And I really have to give Yang that this is a great follow up. I think even if you haven't read the story that, kind of with all this crossover stuff, I think you can sit down and read this on its own. I mean, I really enjoyed that storyline and I really like this. And then of course, having the two artists, do their own thing. And then when you get to the middle, they do half of like the story. I really enjoyed it. And then on top of that, I like this story. I thought it was great because they were, you have a Batman story and a Superman story. And then the artwork. I mean, Paul Peltier and Gray do a really nice job on Batman. It's a really good looking. But for me, I love Francavilla. I love his artwork. And to get him to do anything, just is great. And he draws a really mean Superman that definitely has kind of that flesher feel in a way, which was really nice. And it's just really wonderful. So, if you've been reading this, definitely pick this up. I think if you haven't been reading this, I think this is a good introduction to what Yang has been doing in the book. So I think it's a bit of a good stepping stone to kind of get into where he's taking this book. And I'm really enjoying it. Next up, we have Superman and the Authority, number 2. Written by Grant Morrison. Now, there's multiple artists on this issue. There's Mikhail Janin, FICO Osio, Evan Cagle, and Travel Foreman. So what it is so we now know that, Superman's losing his power, so he's asking the Authority to come and, kind of help him and take his place. So what this issue does, the first issue set up, kind of what the story and what's going on. So this one with the multiple artists, what's really neat is, so there's a Midnight and Apollo, and there's multiple stories done by different artists. So it's kind of like them, so what Morrison is doing here is setting up the rest of the team so you get to know them, because for a lot of people, the Authority has been like out of print for like a long time for the most part. So this is kind of a good primer to get you to know kind of the characters and get to know them a little bit and kind of their powers and stuff. So it's a really smart move, because he set up the first issue with the story. It does continue here in the second story, and then, when we get to the next issue, then we can really hit the ground running and take it from there. So I think it's a really smart idea on Morrison's part to do this second issue the way he does. And then on top of that, the artwork is just, once again, these artists are really just nailing each and every one. I really, Janin is just, he's a wonderful artist. He starts it off because he was the main artist, or he was the artist on the first issue. And just the Ozio's artwork is really wonderful. I really, really like that. Kegel, once again, just, it's really nice looking. And then Foreman just comes in with the win right at the end. And it's a really great looking book. And I really have enjoyed this. I'm really excited to see where, Morrison takes us, because this is apparently his last DC project for the foreseeable future. So I'm really excited to see where. Yeah, I'm glad the second issue really just kept going. So next up we have Lucky Devil #2, written by Colin Bunn, with artwork by Fran Gallen. Now, so the basic premise is this guy was possessed by a demon. He went to get it exorcised, and he did, but it was kind of a botched exorcism in the sense of it flung the demon out, but now the guy actually has all the demon's powers. So basically, he was kind of this loser guy, gets the power. So now we have him. He's kind of become this like cult leader. So that's kind of an interesting twist that, I really didn't quite see coming, because he was kind of this wimpy guy and everything. So in that structure, I mean, the basic structure of that, guy gets money, power, whatever, and kind of changes. So that's what this second issue kind of is. And so yet the demon is still around. He has no powers. But he gives the guy a warning. He's like, I'm not the only demon that has, knows about you. So that's what, I mean, you have the cult thing going on. Then all of a sudden he's like, guess what? You're going to have company. And so that's where the second issue kind of lands. And I really have to say, I mean, the premise was really great in the first issue. Bunn really builds on it the second issue quite well and leaves a really nice cliffhanger for the third issue. And then you have Galen's artwork, which is really, really nice. The artwork really complements it. And it's just a really surprisingly good book. I think it's really worth checking out. I've really enjoyed it. So I can't wait to see where Bunn takes it from here. Next up, we have Sweet Paprika #2, written and drawn by Mirka and Dolfo. Now, I liked the first issue and it was really interesting, but I have to say I was very disappointed with the second issue. The story was very convoluted. Part of what happened is she introduced all the characters in the first issue, and that's fine and everything, but it seems like in the second issue she really tried to have all of the character stories in one issue. Like, you would jump from like character to character. And the problem with that was you just never seemed to be satisfied with each individual story. And that's where the problem lied in the second issue, in the fact that it was kind of a mess. It was just like all over the place. And the problem is that you set up the main character and she's really barely in this story. She's there, but not really. So you kind of, I think one of the things is you don't have anybody to really latch onto in this issue because of the multiple characters in the story jumps. So I think, it's a real shame. Now, I love her artwork, and I think there's really good ideas here because she set that up in the first issue, and there are some great continuing story threads, but overall, it really just it kind of died in the second issue, and I don't even know if I'll go for a third issue, because this one really just missed the mark after that first issue, which I thought was good. The ball got dropped here, so that's what happened. So I would say skip it at this point, because I don't know that it can come back from this. Next up, we have Wonder Girl #3. Written by Joelle Jones, with artwork by Joelle Jones and Adriana Mello. So we're still in, she's setting up Wonder Girl's story. And so we also have kind of the stories of the Amazon trying to, find her, because, they know she's, she's new and everything. So they're trying to figure out, what is going on with her. And so you kind of have two storylines, and that's kind of where the artwork. So Joelle Jones does the main artwork for Wonder Girl, and then the Artemis parts are done by Mello. So it actually works really well, and I really like that. And I think it's a good idea, because it allows, you can kind of visually tell this two stories apart. And even though the art styles are completely different, I think they do complement each other when the way that Jones has set up that story. And that's a really smart move on her part, that allows her to not have to take, the heavy lifting of all the artwork. And it really gives it a nice balance, which you don't see very often. It's pretty rare that you see this kind of tag teaming on the art. And I actually really like that, but I'm really, I love the character of Flora. She's really wonderful. Jones has really created a wonderful, story and atmosphere. And, like I said, we're in the third issue, and she's just building this story. So I think, we're probably about the middle of the story arc. So it's just building at a really nice pace and everything. And I'm really enjoying it. Once again, the artwork is just absolutely fantastic. I really, really like this book, and I really think you should check it out. Next up, we have Black Hammer Reborn #3, written by Jeff Lemire, with artwork by Caitlin Yarsky. Now, once again, I have to say, I love Black Hammer. I love these books, and I really like that this one is kind of a different one, because it's dealing with Lucy and her family, and this issue really deals with her what's going on with her and her husband Elliot. And so then what's really interesting, I will not give it away, but I will tell you that we learn how they met. And it's really intriguing, interesting, and actually really quite charming. But we also have the fact that there is something going on. So what Lemire has set up here is, he set up the family and all this kind of stuff. She's retired from being, Black Hammer. But there is, so we kind of see the past and how it relates to the present, and how the present is relating to what has happened in the past. So that's how he's setting this story up. And then I don't want to give it away, but I will say that one of the main characters from the main storyline comes in at the end, and I think you can probably figure it out who it is, but I will not say. But basically, he brings really bad news with him that really, I think, is going to blow the lid off this story that has already been really good in 3 issues. I just, once again, I really love the way that Lemire has created this universe and created these characters. And there's so many great characters, and we keep seeing new ones. And, it just shows how big this universe is. And yet, these are kind of small stories in some ways. I mean, it is telling a big picture, but there's a lot of, little things just about her dealing with, Lucy dealing with the family, that her and her husband are not getting along. And then you have this great story, and then you have Yarsky coming in for the win on the artwork that really just nails it. I really like the artwork on this book. I like the fact that, Lemire picks artists to do specific things for each book, and he's really picked this one well. It really is great looking, and really just is another feather in the cap for the Black Hammer universe books. I can't recommend these enough, and I'm really loving this story. And you can read this one by itself without knowing entirely the Black Hammer, because Jeff gives you everything you need to know to go with this story. So once again, check it out. Next up, we have Static Season 1, number 3, written by Vida Ilea, with artwork by Nicholas Draper Ivy. Now, once again, I'm very glad that the Milestone books are back. The Dakota universe is back. And Static is obviously the big one. But most everybody knows Static, especially because of the animated series. And here, I love that Ilea really captures, it's like the same Static, but it's new at the same time. And that's really impressive because he's such a well-known character, yet she's not changing him per se. She is, but she's not trying to reinvent the wheel here. She's not, because first of all, the character's not broken, so you don't need to change what works. What you do is you kind of give it more kind of depth and more that back end with the family and friends. Plus you have the whole thing about these basically these kids that have been turned into superheroes or supervillains, and there's that storyline that kind of gels all together, and it just really, it's all coming together so well. And this third issue was really good. I really enjoyed this. We also kind of get to see this is the first time we get to see the new Static outfit, which was quite exciting. And that's where Draper Ivy comes in. He just knocking it out of the park. This is a really damn good looking book. And it's really firing all cylinders. And if you have never gone, if you've never read a Milestone book, these are your chances to jump in, because so far this one and Icon and Rocket have been really, really good right out of the gate. So, but I really love Static. I'm really loving this book, and I'm really excited where Ilea takes this from here. I'm really, really excited. Next up, we have Basilisk number 4, written by Colin Bunn with artwork by Jonas Scarf. Now, so the basic premise, I'll say it again. So we kind of think of like, mutants that, like come, to Earth or whatever. And, they kind of kill people because they don't know how to use their powers. So not so much that they're entirely bad guys, but they do kind of think of themselves as God. So so we have the one woman whose family was killed by them. She's taking revenge. So we've set that up. This issue, they come after her and she's ready for him. And it's wild. That's what this issue is. And no one really wins, no one really loses. It's kind of a draw, but there's definitely, like shrapnel left from this that will really, kind of this really sets up this back end of the story. This has really been it's interesting because it's kind of a superhero book, but not really per se. And that's what I really like what Bunn's doing with this. He is writing a kind of a classic superhero story, but he's giving it kind of some nice spins and stuff, that in a lot of ways, this is a book about gray areas, like they're not, they're the villains, but I wouldn't say they're entirely like bad per se. And when you do a story about kind of gray areas, it's really, I think, intriguing, and Bunn has really done it here quite well. And then you have Scarf's artwork, which really, really is nice. And once again, a lot of the previous issues has been dialogue and everything, so he kind of gets to let loose here with some really, really nice action. There's some really good stuff going on here, and I'm been really surprised by this book. I'm really enjoying it. It's been quite a surprise, and I think it's still worth checking out. I'm really enjoying it. Next up, we have The Many Deaths of Layla Starr number 5, written by Ram V, with artwork by Philippe Andrade. Now, this is the final issue, and, if you haven't been reading it, when the trade comes out, I really recommend. This was really a beautiful ending. So what the basic premise is, again, death is fired because this guy is born and he creates immortality, so people were not going to die. Now, I will not really say what happens. I will say that, because basically she's died, but she's gone through many times where, especially early on, she had a chance to kill him as a baby and she didn't. So, but she basically wants to kill him because he got her fired from her job, taking people she's death. So, what's interesting is how it's changed from like the beginning, and it's more of about how she has changed and how this has affected her, because she's basically somewhat living a mortal life, which she has, she's like a god. So that's what this story has been about. And to say that this was, it was really it was very moving. It really touches you at the end, and it's just, it's very bittersweet, and it really shows. I think the biggest thing that it shows, that ironically you think it's about death, but it's actually about life. And that's, it's just very poignant in that. And I really have to give it to Ram V that this has just been an absolutely beautiful story. And it's one that has just been so well paced and everything. And then, with this wonderful story, and then you have Andre's artwork, which is just absolutely gorgeous. He is just, it's a beautiful book. I cannot recommend it enough. I really, really loved it. It was, like I said, this issue was really touching, and it was just beautiful. And I really, really enjoyed it. And when it comes out as a trade, please, please buy this book. It's so good. It's so good. Next up, we have Geiger #6, written by Jeff Johns with artwork by Gary Frank. So this issue is the final story of the first story arc. So this does somewhat finish up the story that has been set up. So we have Geiger that, is kind of like the nuclear man, and he took the kids to save them. But then one of the kids is got cancer or leukemia. So they're going to just they're going to kill the kid, like put him to sleep sort of thing. But his sister's upset, so he breaks him out. The two-headed dog, they break out of the place, except for there's a giant robot that is just beating the snot out of him. It doesn't look like they're going to make it. I won't give any away anymore, but I will say that Johns and Frank really wrap up the first storyline quite well. And, there's obviously more story to tell, because there's, but it's really good, and I'm really excited to see in November they're doing an 80-page giant. It's going to have multiple stories about the characters, which I think is going to be really cool. And then next year they're going to follow up with another part of the story with a new kind of like miniseries. But like I said, Jeff, this has been a really, really surprise, because I'll be honest that Jeff Johns, I think he's a good writer, but he's not necessarily one of my favorites. But I really enjoyed this book. And then you have Gary Frank's gorgeous artwork. I mean, this book is just freaking amazingly gorgeous. That has been very satisfying. It has a really great, satisfying into this first story arc, but there's more to come, so I'm very excited about that. The trade's going to be coming out of this one, so I think it's worth checking out. It's been a lot of fun. And finally this week we have Firepower #15, written by Robert Kirkman with artwork by Chris Samnee. Once again, I love this book. It's the book you're not buying, you should be buying. You should be buying this book. There's trades out. There's no excuse at this point. You should be reading this book. Why? Look, I'll be honest, I am not Robert Kirkman's greatest fan. I like his stuff, but some of it has not been very good in my humble opinion. But Firepower is damn good. I think it's better than The Walking Dead. Honestly, it is. I think this is, and a lot of that really has to do with him and Samnee are just working perfectly. They just fit together like a glove on a hand. And, we're still feeling the ramifications of, like what happened in the big blowout with him going back, and now we have the snakes, and now the snakes are possessing people. We don't know what's going on. There was supposed to be a dragon. There's not a dragon. And then, his girlfriend that he was training with died, but she really didn't die. So there's a lot going on. But what I love about like issues like this is about the family and how he's dealing. His kind of ex comes back. The wife's, she's not pissed per se, but she's more like, he found out she came back but didn't tell his wife. So, that's not going to fly very far. You know how it goes. And so, there's that, but that's really what a lot of this issue is about, is just kind of like the humanistic, kind of just normalcy of the characters. And that's why this book works so well. Is it's not, I mean, there's the great fighting and the kung fu and all that stuff. That's great. And but it's really the characters and how they're just so well done, and just like you're really interested in like the emotions of the characters. And that's why this book is so damn good. And I can't recommend it enough. And it's just really good. Okay, that's going to wrap it up. I know it's been a long show. It's a lot of books we had to get through this week. Once again, public service announcement. I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics, Long Beach, California. Ryan, Annie, and Eduardo, it's a great team there. Ryan runs a great store, great customer service. They have a sister store separate, but same name. There's Pulp Fiction Culver City, run by Chris and her team, another great store. Both stores offer discounts on new comics if you're a subscriber. They also offer 30% off of trades and graphic novels on most of the mainline stuff. They're really great stores. Check them out if you live in the LA area. But once again, support your local comic shop. It's very important. Things are still a little tough out there, and they are tough. So once again, I urge everyone to please get vaccinated. Continue wearing your face mask. We're getting some rough times again, and getting vaccinated is really a way that not only you can help yourself, you can help everybody else to help get the spread and get this so we can get back to normal. And finally, just be kind. Be kind to each other. Kindness goes a long way, and with all this stuff going on in the world, being kind to one another is, something that's free and good. So that's going to wrap it up. Everybody take care of yourselves. We'll see you again next week. This is Steven from Pop Culture Maven signing out. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.